What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, I'm going to be talking about Avengers Twilight, #1, written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Daniel Acuna. So this is a comic that I wasn't really sure what to think about when I ultimately picked it up to read. And I gotta admit, there is some pretty interesting stuff going on here. I was actually kind of worried about where this was gonna go. All I knew is that Chip was gonna be writing it, Daniel Acuna was gonna be providing the art for it. So I knew that at least on some level, regardless of what the story actually is or what direction it's going to go in, I knew at the very least it would be interesting. So in this story, the world has changed. And not only has it changed, but a lot of time has passed. A lot of the heroes we're used to seeing are missing in action. And the ones we do get to see, they're much older now. Not only that, it seems like Nazis are trying to make a quiet comeback. This story is clearly Chip Zdarsky taking real world occurrences and bringing them into the Marvel Comics universe. And while I know some people will cry about that, oh, he's made it political. I mean, this is a comic with Captain America, so I don't know what to tell you there. This story hits in a lot of very interesting ways, and a lot of this is because one of the things that actually kind of caught me by surprise is the state of things. One of them being the fact that Captain America is getting older, and it's not because age is catching up with him because the super soldier serum can only do so much. It's actually because he doesn't have the super soldier serum anymore. It was taken from him. He was drained of the super soldier serum by the government, it is presumed, and largely because of events that took place years ago in the past relative to when the story takes place. While we're shown some glimpses of what has happened, it's hard to know what story we can believe because the way everything is framed here is that the corporate media, they're under the thumb of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the United States government. So they're controlling the narrative. The information that the world at large has, it's difficult to say whether any of it's even true. And we're mostly going off the word of Captain America and some of the other remaining characters who just so happen to survive this event. And what we discover is that while it's framed as though the heroes had somehow suddenly turned on the United States, they had turned on the world at large. Dr. Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, had supposedly just gone crazy and just started destroying everything. It's implied by Steve Rogers that it was actually Ultron that had done something to Hulk, that somehow, some way, Ultron had pushed Hulk in this direction, that it's not entirely Hulk's fault. And while the rest of the media kind of tries to frame it as though the Avengers were in on the whole thing. Regardless of the situation, as a direct result of this, Captain America was drained of the super soldier serum and now is just a regular dude. He's still, kind of buff a little bit. He's still got some muscle on him, but he doesn't have the superhuman strength and durability and stamina or the youth that he had had before. He's a normal guy for the most part, is like just as if a normal dude just worked out all the time, regardless of his age. Think of him as like a Stephen Lang, but a bit older. One of the other things going on here too is that the Nazis are being laundered to the American people. And what I mean by that, if you don't understand that term or terminology or whatever, basically what that means is that the reputation of Nazis is being sanitized, is being cleansed, being made better, so that the American people will be more accepting of them. There is a bit that plays early on in the issue where Steve Rogers and his wife, who is a character I'm not familiar with, I think she is completely made up for the story, a doctor by the name of Rosa, she is watching some special, and it's about the Red Skull, and the Red Skull is being treated as though he was actually a good guy the whole time, that there was some misunderstanding in that Captain America and all the other, military forces of the world tried to paint him as a bad guy when he was really trying to secretly bring down Hitler from the inside. But I think we all know the real truth in that is that the Red Skull was only trying to take down Hitler from the inside is because he wanted his power, not because he wanted to stop Hitler from trying to destroy all the other ethnicities in the world and trying to make the rest of the world like his own Third Reich. No, that's not what he was trying to do, and Captain America takes offense to this, and rightfully so. The idea that Nazis are being sanitized so that, you know, everyday average Americans see them as some, I guess, sympathetic figure. It is something that happens in the real world more often than you might imagine, and not even just with Nazis, but just with people in general, where we try to take a person's, past crimes and pretend they never happened. I often like to bring up former President George W. Bush. George W. Bush was one of the worst presidents we've had in recent memory, and he's only really dwarfed by Donald Trump just because Donald Trump was just so awful as a president. But the funny part about this is that with time having removed us from George W. Bush in his presidency, I have often heard not just people in news media say this, but I've even heard people out in the world say that, oh, George W. Bush, he wasn't that bad. Or they try and, make funny jokes or try and act like, oh, he's cool now because of that meme where, he was hanging out with Michelle Obama and they were sharing candy or whatever. Or the fact like, oh, look at him, he's just such a quirky, fun guy. No, he was a war criminal. Treat him as such. That's kind of what they're doing with Red Skull in this. They're like, oh, he wasn't such a bad guy. You don't know the real story about the Red Skull. You're one of the sheeple. You just believe everything Captain America told you. See, he punched Hitler and you just ran with it. No, what was really going on is that Red Skull was the real hero the whole time. That's basically what the corporate news media in the story is doing. And that's not even the worst thing that's going on here. I mean, it is damnable, don't get me wrong. There's also worse things going on. America, in the wake of all this, has become a dystopia. Everyone with some damn sense is afraid, but everyone else is just acting as if nothing is wrong. There's constant surveillance. How we always worry that, oh, Big Brother's always watching us. No, they are, only this time, they're doing it in the open. There are curfews in place. There's anti-recording policies. There's also literal jackbooted thugs as soldiers in pseudo Iron Man armors called Iron Cops, enforcing all of these laws. So how could a world fall so easily like this? Where are the heroes who could come along and stop this from happening? And as I said earlier, a lot of the heroes are missing because a lot of them have been killed. And what few heroes remain, they're too old to do anything about it. Yeah, sure, Luke Cage and Matt Murdock are still around to help Captain America take down the big bad government, but here's the problem with that. Luke Cage has aged to the point that his unbreakable skin has become immovable, making it to where he can hardly move at all. He's effectively incapable of superheroing anything. And Matt Murdock, while he doesn't really have, quotey fingers, superpowers the way that a guy like Luke Cage does, he still has his radar sense and his other heightened senses, but he's not fighting crime anymore either. He has taken back up his law practice to try to defend the people who are being harassed and being hit with all these hatchet jobs that S.H.I.E.L.D. and the United States government are perpetrating. And even he doesn't get to do that for very long because he's killed off panel, mind you, somewhere in the middle of this story, just in the first issue. You might ask yourself, well, if Captain America is still around, then what about Iron Man? What is he doing about all this? And the truth is, he's doing nothing, and that's because he can't. Iron Man is gone. All he has is the legacy that he's left behind, a son who he had with Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, a kid by the name of James Stark. Now, if James seems like a very strange name for Tony to give to his son, it's because while some of us have always known longtime ally and confidant to Iron Man, War Machine, colloquially he's always been referred to as Rhodey. However, I think people refer to him as such so much that they forget his first name is actually James. So James Stark is named after War Machine. Unfortunately, that's about the only thing he took from War Machine. We don't even know where War Machine is in the middle of all this. It's presumed that he's very likely dead. This James Stark is effectively nothing more than what Tony was before he became Iron Man. And that's pretty damnable considering that this James Stark is also Iron Man in this day and age. He is running the company and he's also working closely with S.H.I.E.L.D. and the United States government. He has a direct line to the president of these United States. And not only does he have a direct line to the president, who is basically getting him to outfit his Iron Cops with even better armor and his militaries with enough force to take down Dr. Doom, who we know is still active in this particular timeline. He's also got a direct line to his father, Tony Stark. And Tony, as I said earlier, he's gone, but he's not dead. Not really. What's going on here is he's living a sort of half-life. He's seemingly kept alive by virtue of the fact that he is trapped inside of a containment unit inside the Raft, the very same prison that's used to house all of Marvel's super criminals. And it's here where Iron Man is being kept, and he has no body. He's just a disembodied head connected to a piece of Iron Man armor and a bunch of electrodes and probes. And James is seemingly seeking counsel with Tony, though it's not a conversation I think he's seeking to have. I think it's information that he's trying to take. It's implied through some artistic license that's going on here that this connection is more one way than it is a two-way thing. And when James Stark is going to put on his Iron Man helmet to communicate with Tony, it is referred to prior that this connection could somehow harm James in some way, that's gonna somehow break his brain waves and, destroy his mind. But whatever it is he's doing, he's downloading some kind of information from Tony, whether this is some kind of ideas or plans, knowledge about the Avengers that can help him in trying to shut down Captain America. It could be anything. But one thing I can't help but wonder is if Ultron's not involved in this in some way, shape, form, or capacity or another, because Ultron is brought up more than a couple of times. But it does seem like maybe that is just a big bad boogeyman that is being used in place of what we see here in this issue with Tony Stark. But regardless of all that, Captain America is one of the only people who can help shut this whole thing down. And in order to do that, he's going to need the super soldier serum. He's going to need it because, as we saw earlier, when he tries to take on the Iron Cops, while he does get some good jabs in, without the super soldier serum, he can't fight back against these people. He does wind up getting the super soldier serum back thanks to Luke Cage. Luke Cage is put together while, once again, he cannot fight for himself because his unbreakable skin has become immovable now to the point where he has to walk with a cane and can barely even do that at all. He has been working with people who have recreated the super soldier serum, and because we know the nature of the super soldier serum, not everyone is capable of having it in their system and it not killing them. There are very few people in the world who have been able to use the super soldier serum safely, and in this case, Captain America Steve Rogers is one of them. I feel like Captain America, now that he has the super soldier serum back in his system and working with Luke Cage's defenders, guys who look eerily like Moon Knights more than they do anything else, which says a lot considering some of the things we saw recently in the recent Timeless one-shot regarding Luke Cage and his fight against the Moon Knight of that time frame. This is all going to be some pretty interesting stuff. I'm actually pretty curious to see where the rest of this is ultimately going to go, but I wonder, what other heroes we're going to see are out there. We know Spider-Man is dead. We literally see his death in this issue, so I wonder if we know Tony, we know what happened to him. I wonder if we're gonna figure out whatever happened to Janet, or what happened to characters like Vision, the Hulk, and Hawkeye, and Monica Rambeau, and Carol Danvers. What happened to all these characters? Where are they right now? We know that Kamala Khan is going to get involved in this, so that is one thing. That's not really news in that regard, but I do wonder where Thor is in all of this. And considering that James Stark is operating as Iron Man right now, I think it's safe to say we'll see what is effectively a battle between an older Captain America and a younger Iron Man. So that'll be something of note. But yeah, I can't wait to see where this all plays out. You guessed it, obligatory channel outro time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Clicking that subscribe button and tapping that notification bell ensures that you get more videos just like this one, and you don't miss any of my other content that I drop throughout the week, plus my live streams every Thursday and Saturday. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that like button, keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.